I was 14 years old, standing on the cracked pavement of the boarding school pickup zone with my life packed into 2 battered suitcases, waiting for a minivan that was never coming. My family was moving to Miami that morning to launch their new reality brand, and I was supposed to be in the back seat. Instead, my phone buzzed in my palm with a single, silent notification that explained everything. "You have been removed from Family Squad." Before I could even blink, a text from my mother followed. It read, "Plans changed, sweetie. You do not fit the aesthetic. Uncle Marcus will pick you up." They did not even call to say goodbye. They just hit delete. If you have ever felt like you were the only one putting effort into a relationship, drop a yes in the comments. I want to know I am not alone. In psychology, there is a specific term for siblings like me. They call us glass children. It means your parents look right through you to see the golden one standing behind you. For my parents, Kevin and Brenda, the view was always Tiffany and Brittany. My sisters were the stars, the ones with the ring lights, the modeling classes, and the curated Instagram feeds. I was just Sienna. I was the one who made sure the permission slips were signed and the dishes were done, purely so the background of their selfies looked clean. I was not a person to them. I was a prop that had accidentally been left on set. I sat on my suitcase for 6 hours as the sun dipped below the horizon and the campus lights flickered on. I did not cry. Tears imply you are surprised, and honestly, deep down I was not surprised. I was just cold. The dormitory behind me was silent, a hollow kind of quiet that settles into your bones when you realize you have nowhere else to go. I watched cars come and go, parents hugging their kids, until the parking lot was empty. Then, a low, guttural rumble shook the pavement. It was not a minivan. A vintage silver Aston Martin, sharp as a scalpel and twice as expensive, pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down with a smooth, mechanical hum. Uncle Marcus sat behind the wheel. He was the family black sheep, the venture capitalist my father called a soulless vulture because he chose leverage over loyalty. He looked at me, small and shivering in the dark, and then he looked at the phone still clutched in my hand. He did not ask if I was okay. He did not offer a pitying smile or a warm hug. He just unlocked the passenger door. "Get in," he said, his voice gravelly and devoid of emotion. They finally cut the dead weight. "Now you can actually fly." I threw my bags into the trunk and slid into the leather seat. It smelled like expensive cologne and cold indifference. As we drove away, leaving the only life I had ever known behind, I stared out the window at the blurring trees. My phone lit up with a notification. It was a photo Brittany had just posted. The caption read, "Miami bound with the squad. New beginnings." There was a palm tree emoji. I was not in the picture. Marcus took me to a steakhouse that night. It was dark, quiet, and filled with people wearing suits that cost more than my tuition. I sat across from him, curling inward, trying to make myself as small as possible. I was used to shrinking. I was used to being the invisible buffer between my family's ego and reality. I took a sip of water, hunching my shoulders up to my ears, hoping he would not notice me. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. The silverware rattled. "Stop it," he snapped. I froze, staring at him. "Stop hunching," he commanded, his eyes narrowing. "You are not a question mark, Sienna. Stop apologizing for taking up space. If you want to survive in this world without them, you need to learn to stand up." He cut into his steak with precise, surgical movements. "Your parents think they discarded you," he said, pointing his knife at me. "But what they actually did was set you free. You are a glass child, Sienna. You know what is good about glass. It is hard. It is sharp. And if you break it the right way, it cuts." I straightened my spine, inch by painful inch, until I was looking him in the eye. For the first time in my life, I did not feel invisible. I felt seen, and I realized that while my parents had left me with nothing, Uncle Marcus was offering me something far more dangerous. He was offering me a blueprint. Living in Marcus's house was like living inside a shark tank, quiet, sleek, and dangerous. He called it the Glass Cliff, a brutalist fortress of raw concrete and floor-to-ceiling windows perched on the edge of a stormy coastline. It was nothing like the pastel-colored, fake happiness of my parents' house. There were no family photos on the walls here, only abstract art that looked like violent explosions frozen in time. It was cold, it was sharp, and for the first few weeks, I tiptoed around like I was waiting for an alarm to go off. Marcus did not believe in coddling. On my first morning, I came downstairs to find a ledger on the kitchen island instead of breakfast. I do not do allowances, he said, pouring black coffee into a mug that looked like a piece of slate. Allowances breed dependency. I do seed capital. He slid a crisp envelope across the marble counter. $500 a month. That is your operating budget. You invest it, you multiply it, or you lose it. But you never, ever beg for more. If you run out, you starve until the first of the month. Welcome to the real world, Sienna. I took the envelope. My hand shook, just a little. It was terrifying, but it was also respectful. He was treating me like a business partner, not a charity case. But the nights were the hardest. Alone in my room, I would scroll through my phone, watching my sisters live their Technicolor lives in Miami. Tiffany posted videos of yacht parties. Brittany did unboxing videos of designer bags I could never afford. They looked so perfect, so whole, and I felt like a pile of shattered glass swept into a corner. One rainy Tuesday, Marcus found me crying in the library. I was looking at a photo of my mother hugging Tiffany, captioned my twin soul. I tried to hide the phone, but Marcus snatched it from my hand. He did not look at the screen. He dropped the phone into a glass of water sitting on the desk. I gasped, reaching for it, but he caught my wrist. "Let it drown," he said. "It is poison." He walked over to a display shelf and picked up a small, cracked ceramic bowl. It was ugly at first glance, jagged lines of gold running through the clay like veins. He held it out to me. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. I shook my head, wiping my eyes. "It is called kintsugi," he said. "It is the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with lacquer mixed with powdered gold. They do not hide the cracks, Sienna. They highlight them. They believe that the piece is more beautiful for having been broken." He placed the bowl in my hands. It was heavy, cool to the touch. I ran my thumb over the gold seams. They felt stronger than the clay itself. "Your parents wanted a pristine vase to put on a shelf," Marcus said, his voice low. "They threw you away because you had cracks. They thought you were damaged goods. But they were wrong." He leaned in, his eyes fierce. "The gold is the lesson. The gold is the resilience. The gold is what happens when you stop trying to be perfect and start trying to be strong. You are not broken, Sienna. You are being forged. Stop trying to be a vase. Be the bowl that holds the fire." That night, I fished my phone out of the water. It was dead. I did not buy a new one for 3 months. Instead, I took my $500 and bought books on urban planning, architecture, and contract law. I stopped watching their lives and started building my own foundation. I stopped looking for their validation and started looking for leverage. 15 years later, I was not the girl shivering on the curb anymore. I was 29, a lead urban planner for the city, and I walked with a spine of steel. I had a partner, Jordan, who was an architect, steady, grounding, and real. We were building a life that did not require filters. Then, the email arrived. It pinged into my inbox on a Tuesday afternoon, right in the middle of a site meeting. The subject line read, "Big news. Family celebration." It was from Tiffany. I opened it, expecting an apology, maybe a request to reconnect. Instead, it was a digital wedding invitation. Pastel pink, covered in animated sparkles. Tiffany was marrying a tech entrepreneur she had met 3 months ago. I scrolled down. There was no location, no date for the reception, just a single link in bold, cursive font. "Since we are keeping the ceremony intimate and know you cannot make the trip, we would love your blessing from afar. Link to registry below." I stared at the screen. They did not want me there. They just wanted a gift. After 15 years of silence, no birthday cards, no graduation congratulations, not even a text when I was hospitalized for appendicitis, they had the audacity to ask for a Vitamix. My blood ran hot. I wanted to scream. I wanted to reply and type out every angry thought I had suppressed for a decade. I wanted to burn the bridge so brightly they could see the flames in Miami. Marcus was sitting in his armchair by the window, reading the Wall Street Journal. He saw the look on my face. "Emotion is expensive, Sienna," he said without looking up. "Spend it wisely. What is the ROI on this anger?" I paced the room, holding the phone up. "Roy. Marcus." She sent me a registry link. She wants a toaster from the sister she erased. I am going to tell her exactly where she can shove her toaster. Marcus lowered the paper. He took a sip of his whiskey, his eyes gleaming with that familiar, predatory intelligence. "You could do that," he said. "You could send a nasty email. She will read it, delete it, and tell everyone you are bitter and jealous. She wins. Or," he paused, swirling the amber liquid in his glass, "or you can send a gift that she cannot return. A gift that tells the truth without you saying a single word." I stopped pacing. I looked at him. "What do you have in mind?" Marcus smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a wolf who had just spotted a limping deer. "Make a donation," he said. "In her name." I frowned. "A donation? That sounds nice. That sounds weak." "Not if you pick the right charity," he said softly. We sat at his mahogany desk, and for the next 10 minutes we searched. We bypassed the animal shelters and the food banks. We were looking for something specific, something that would land like a slap in the face masked as a kiss. And then we found it, the foundation for survivors of narcissistic abuse. I looked at Marcus. He nodded. I pulled up the donation page. I entered Tiffany's name as the honoree. I entered her email address for the notification. And then, under the donation amount, I typed in $25,000. It was a significant amount of my savings, but as I hovered my finger over the submit button, I realized it wasn't spending money. It was buying peace. I hit send. A receipt generated instantly. "Thank you for your generous gift in honor of Tiffany Mountain. Your support helps victims escape toxic family systems." Marcus let out a laugh, a deep, raspy bark of a laugh I hadn't heard in years. He raised his glass to me. "That," he said, "is a kill shot." I leaned back in my chair, watching the confirmation screen. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt light. I felt clean. I imagined Tiffany opening her email, expecting a blender, and finding a tax-deductible receipt for a charity that described her entire personality as a pathology. She couldn't complain about it. She couldn't post it on Instagram without exposing herself. It was a trap made of gold. "Happy wedding day, sister," I whispered. I did not know it then, but that was the last victory lap Marcus and I would take together. The wolf was strong, but even wolves eventually fall. And when he did, the silence would be louder than any scream. Wolves do not retire. They die hunting. I always assumed Marcus would go out in the middle of a hostile takeover, shouting orders into a phone while a ticker tape scrolled across his retinas. I never expected him to fade. It happened 3 months after the wedding invitation incident. We were reviewing quarterly projections in his study when he dropped his pen. It was a small sound, a click against the hardwood, but it was followed by a thud that shook the floorboards. I looked up to see the invincible man, the titan of venture capital, crumpling like a paper crane. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. By the time we found it, it wasn't a diagnosis. It was an eviction notice. The doctors gave him 6 weeks. He looked at the oncologist with the same dispassionate glare he used on underperforming CEOs and asked for the data. When they showed him the scans, he didn't cry. He nodded. Market correction. He rasped, tapping the image of a tumor. The body is a volatile asset, Sienna. Eventually, the bubble bursts. I became his gatekeeper. I moved a cot into his room and turned the library into a command center. I managed his empire by day and managed his pain by night. I learned how to administer morphine with the same precision he taught me to analyze a contract. And my family? They sent emojis. I texted my mother the day of the diagnosis. "Uncle Marcus is dying. It's bad." Her response came 4 hours later. "Oh no. Sending love and light. We're in the middle of filming the pilot for the reality show, so we can't fly out, but please tell him we're praying." They didn't call. They didn't FaceTime. Tiffany sent a fruit basket that arrived 3 days late with a card signed by her assistant. Brittany posted a throwback photo of her and Marcus from when she was 5, a photo taken before they abandoned me, with the caption, "Thinking of my favorite uncle. Cancer sucks. #family first." She got 4,000 likes. She never visited. Marcus saw it all. Even as he withered, his mind remained sharp as a razor. He told me the truth 2 nights before he died. "They're not grieving me," Marcus rasped in the dark. "They're grieving the ATM. They're scared I'll stop breathing before I sign the last check." The house felt different that night, as if the walls were listening. Marcus crooked a trembling finger, pointing at the bottom drawer of his nightstand. "The black folder," he whispered. I opened the drawer and found a heavy matte black binder, alone, like it had been waiting. "I bought something," he said. "2 years ago. I didn't tell you. You had to learn to stand on your own first. To know you could live without it." His fingers clamped around my wrist, sudden steel in his failing body. "Now," he murmured, eyes burning into mine, "you're the landlord." He couldn't explain more. The words ran out before his pulse did. 48 hours later, at 3 a.m, with a storm pounding the glass, Marcus slipped away. I checked his pulse, noted the time, and straightened his tie. He had taught me that emotion is a luxury. I wouldn't spend it carelessly. The funeral was elegant and restrained. The people there were predators in black suits, competitors, partners, rivals, who understood they'd just lost the apex shark. I stood at the front in a sharp black suit, dry-eyed, accepting their condolences with a nod and a firm grip. Then the spectacle arrived. The church doors opened and in swept the Miami squad, my parents and sisters, dressed not for mourning but for cameras. My mother's veiled hat belonged in a magazine spread. My sisters glided down the aisle in coordinated silk, makeup calibrated for tragic but photogenic. They turned the aisle into a runway. My mother wrapped me in a perfumed hug. "Sienna, darling, you look exhausted," she cooed, eyes already scanning the crowd. "We'll have to stick together now. The estate taxes will be brutal for us, but Daddy knows a brilliant accountant." Us. We. Daddy. They had already grouped themselves with Marcus, financially, if not morally. I peeled her hands off my shoulders. "Sit down, Brenda," I said quietly. "The show's about to start." We buried him. Then we went to the reading. In the cliffside library of the glass cliff, with the ocean churning beyond the windows, Marcus's lawyer, Mr. Sterling, opened the will. My family's eyes devoured the room, measuring windows, assessing art, already moving in. Sterling read the bequests, donations, staff bonuses. Then, to my brother Kevin and his wife Brenda, I leave my pity. Nothing else. No cash, no shares, not even a brick of a house. My father exploded. "We're his blood." Sterling didn't flinch. He turned to me. "To Sienna, my niece, student, and partner, I leave the entire residue of my estate, approximately $18.5 million. The room detonated. They called me a manipulator, a predator, promised lawsuits and probate war. I let them rant. Then I placed the black folder on the table. "Sit," I said. They did. Inside were the documents. The note on their Miami penthouse, purchased by a shell company, Aurora Holdings, when they were drowning in debt. They had been sending payments to my P.O. box for 2 years. "Aurora is me," I said. "I own your mortgage. You're 90 days past due." I handed each of them an envelope. "Eviction notices. 30 days to vacate. Unless you accept a restructuring. Repay arrears in 6 months with interest and a lien on all future influencer income. 20% to Aurora until the debt is gone." "That's extortion," Tiffany hissed. "That's business," I replied. "Interest on what you did to me." I left them with the papers and walked out to the balcony. The Pacific roared below. I held up the small kintsugi bowl, its golden fractures catching the gray light. Broken, repaired, priceless. They had tried to discard me like shattered glass. They forgot glass can be reforged. My name is Sienna. I am the architect of my own life. The ledger is balanced. And this time I am home.